Okay, so I guess we're starting. This is the first video of the Ingredient Pals channel. I believe so. Um, First things first. What can you expect from videos in this channel? It's a video because we're not yet allowed to do streaming. I think YouTube has to still approve us for these. But I'm gonna try to turn those into live streams in the future so that you can actually interact via chat as well if you have questions. But essentially, what we're going to do, or what I'm going to be doing for the next weeks, is trying to live stream or upload videos where we test ingredient piles. Ingredient piles a um, is a tool, a social network for for cooking and food enthusiasts that we've built. And we're trying to actually test how reliable it is, because it kind of has a bit of a special twist to how you create recipes. It's not your common hey, take a picture or whatever, or type in your recipe details. So it's a bit experimental, and it's kind of wrapped around like the way you build with the AI these days. um, and so we want to make sure that these are that the system works reliably. So you're not if you want to keep watching, I guess what you can expect is me just going through the testing process of how you build a recipe with the app. This also kind of comes with the mobile app, by the way, where you can do the same. But for streaming purposes, it's going to be better if we do this in this format. So what I'll do is essentially go in here and create recipe. And essentially I'm going to kind of play with these and see whether we can find issues and problems, because ultimately what we want to accomplish, and this is a live website, you can actually go and register. It's for free, and you can just sign up and start creating recipes. So the idea here is, for those who are not familiar with how AI is currently getting mixed up in the creation process of many things like art, code, and things like these. It's kind of like an iterative process where you're giving the system instructions and building whatever you want to build, right? So in this case, we're building a recipe. Now, I guess for a lot of people, that might feel a bit like, okay, so how reliable can this recipe be? That's what I'm trying to test here, and that's what we'll be trying to test in the coming um, in the coming days and weeks. So I'm going to try to stream once or twice a week at least, and actually build a few things. There's many things you can do here, right? So essentially, you've got your recipe preview here on the right side, and you have like the prompt in here. So the easiest thing to do first, you have other options in here. We'll get to this in a second. But the easiest thing you can do is just ask for the recipe that you want, right? So I want a recipe for, or I want to cook. What are we gonna? Let's go with something that is maybe easy to cross-check. Something that is like. Well, let's start with something simple first for this episode, and then we're gonna try to do something more complex like baking and whatnot. So we'll start with something simple that everyone can recognize. That's just a baseline, and it's actually reliable, at least at that level. So I want to cook. I want to cook spaghetti carbonara. Let's see what it does, right? Because there's a lot of different versions of these, and actually, my lazy parents used to cook like a cheap version of these, where they were not really doing carbonara. They were actually doing like they were doing a cheap version where they were putting milk and flour, and that would look like carbonara, but it's not really the carbonara that you would expect. That is like raw egg or raw egg white. I think that's raw egg white. But so I want to cook spaghetti carbonara. And let's see what it does with these. Okay, so we can do more things. Like we can ask it like, give me a recipe for 8 people, and make sure I can cook it under 30 minutes. Okay. I don't know, just to start with some example. I also want an image. I also want the picture. So let's see what happens. Now this might take like a few seconds, maybe a minute or two, depending on how complex your request is and what you're doing. What's happening is under the ground, under the hood is we're asking a bunch of AI models to build a recipe based off of these instructions. And we're always, the way that we've built these to ensure that it's reliable is we're actually not asking just one model, we're asking 3 different models. And we're getting the best result and the fastest result as well back to you. This allows us to make sure that we're kind of constantly testing for the recipe being actually useful. And once we'll get the recipe back, okay, so we got it back. And you'll notice that we can actually keep, like, that's not the end of the process, right? So the beauty of these is that if I want to make changes to that, I can actually ask the tool to make changes on top of these. So let's see what it's done. It says classic spaghetti carbonara, 8 people, 25 minutes. It respected our instructions. A rich and creamy Roman pasta dish. Not so sure why it used Roman. I guess it's Italian. Made with eggs, hard cheese, cured pork, and black pepper. Is scaled for 8 people. We don't really want these in the instructions. I don't really care. So you can always just make an edit here, right? So that's all good. So I don't want this in the description. It's not really just dinner. I guess I don't really care about the meal type. So, or maybe I will just put lunch as well. So that's also fine. Italian pasta. I mean, those are all suggestions from the LLM. And then you kind of have here the okay. So that's the first thing. Let's see what the experts recommend. So it says 450 grams. Again, in terms of the sizes, will definitely vary where you're from. I am actually located in Europe, and so I go much more intuitively by grams and the metric system in general. So 450 grams of spaghetti for 8 people. It's like almost half kilo of spaghetti for 8 people. Feels a little too less, but that's just maybe I'm used to eat a lot of pasta. But I guess it's not too bad in terms of ratio. I don't know how many grams of pasta per person constitute a standard portion. Can ask perplexity. Yeah, kind of says 75 grams. So maybe that's a little too less. Okay, so that's the model racing, by the way. So here's where we kind of take a look at, how well these models are performing, right? So these are the models that we're using right now in the system, 3 different models, and we're kind of checking, how many times they fail, how many times they succeed, and we kind of can keep testing continuously, right? So here, I guess it's okay because we also have eggs. Interesting. So it's 8 large egg yolks and 4 large whole eggs. I'm curious about. Let's just Google like a, because I don't know what a carbonara recipe with. So what typically, what are the typical carbonara recipes actually telling you? Let's just go for something like the BBC stuff. That is like, yeah, sure. I don't want to. That's the problem. You see, like, it's so hard to actually understand a recipe when you just go online. By the way, you can just also do. I'll show you now something else you can do with it. But essentially, okay, it's telling us 3 large eggs. That's an interesting thing, right? So because this recipe is just telling you 3 large eggs. I guess what you're going to do here in the steps is 8 egg yolks and 4 whole eggs. It's a bit unclear whether 4 of these yolks can come from these whole eggs. Bring a large pot for heavily salt and water boil spaghetti and cook according to package directions. While the pasta cooks, whisk together the egg yolks, whole eggs, pecorino romano. I mean, it definitely says to mix everything, so I would just say it's 8 large yolks and 4. It's a lot of eggs, but I guess for 8 people, kind of makes sense because carbonara is like the carbonara dressing is more yolky than actually just pure eggs, right? Although here, if I check this recipe, beat the 3 eggs, Yeah, so here they just use the entire eggs. Should I use whole eggs for carbonara or just egg yolks? To be honest, I don't know. If any of you is Italian, then use egg yolks, often plus a couple of whole eggs. Okay, so that matches, at least matches what our recipe is saying, right? It's like use mainly egg yolks, but then add a couple of whole eggs for some regional adaptations. Okay, that's fine. But maybe let's test it now. So essentially, now let's say you're kind of happy with these, but you're not really like you don't want to use that much, like that many eggs. So you're gonna say, please adapt it so that it only uses egg yolks and does not add any extra whole eggs. That should actually work, right? So what we're just like we're now prompting, we're now basically adding context and we're modifying this recipe. Okay, so we're not creating, like, as you can see, I'm not like creating it from scratch again. I'm just telling what I want to modify. and now the system should come back with the recipe modified according to my instructions, and it's going to highlight the sections that it's basically modified. And again, we're testing these, okay? So it might not work perfectly. That's what we're doing this, because it's very hard to test for consistency, right? It's easy to just test the system technically, but it's hard to test that it's actually giving you sensible recipes, and it's not telling me to, I don't know, boil lettuce or something like this, right? So let's see what it does. It's basically, I'm not too happy that it changes the title with these little things like these, but it's essentially, okay, so what it's done is it's combined. Okay, so it's combined, but that's pretty smart, right? What it's done is it's combined the whole amount of eggs. It just says 12 egg yolks only, right? It hasn't, and then it has adapted, I think, some of the sizes for these things, but it's pecorino romano cheese, Parmesan cheese, optional for mild flavor. Okay, so we've got pancetta. So essentially that's like bacon, right? Freshly ground black pepper, salt for pasta, water. Okay. It kept the spaghetti size, and now essentially it just, let's go step by step. So bring a large pot of heavily salted water to a boil. Add the spaghetti and cook according to package directions until al dente. While the pasta cooks, whisk together the egg yolks, pecorino romano, and a generous amount of freshly ground black pepper in a large bowl until well combined and creamy. Set aside. Cook the diced pancetta. Okay, I think it makes sense. Remove the crispy pork. Before draining, reserve. That's actually important for the recipe. I know that you actually have to reserve the starchy water. Drain the spaghetti and add it to a skillet with you have the pork fat, and toss to coat the pasta. Remove the skillet from the heat. Quickly pour the egg yolk and cheese mixture. You've only whisked it, okay, so you haven't cooked it, and that's the point. Stir in most of the crispy thing. Taste and adjust seasoning. To me, it really seems like it's a very good recipe. I'm not too happy with the image though, because it actually shows the egg yolks like that. I'm gonna try to generate another image, see if now, like, that we've changed that actually improves it. If not, it might be interesting to actually have a mechanism to give some direction for the image generation. It doesn't definitely look good that this is definitely not good that it actually shows the egg yolks like this, because that's not how you'd present carbonara, really, unless maybe, because what we're using for the image generation is we're using the entire recipe, right? So, but maybe if I just say classic spaghetti carbonara and I remove these, if I remove these and try to generate it again, maybe it's not gonna take it. So I specifically focus on the egg yolks because it was in the title, right? It's hard to optimize for these things, because essentially the way that we do this is we have very specific prompts telling the AI how to. Yes, okay. Now actually that is awesome. That looks definitely better. Um, yeah, that looks definitely better. I mean, you can definitely influence the image generation by adapting the text in here. Anyway, now that I have these and I'm happy with these, I can just go ahead and publish it. So I'm gonna publish this recipe, and that's it. Now we have it. We have it published. I can go and take a look at the recipe, and I can share it with people. So I can actually just have these. I have all the steps, ingredients. Um, and what's cool about these is that now, let's say you're like, cool. So I'm looking at these, but it's classic spaghetti carbonara. I want to give it a twist. Okay. So that's something else fancy that we've been kind of cooking in terms of feature, which is called it's like remixing. So you see this bar here. If I now ask it to like uh, make it vegan, let's see what it's gonna do. Okay, because this is heavily based on meat, so let's see what it's gonna do. Like I'm gonna click the remix button, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna take this recipe and it's gonna actually remix it. So it's gonna make it vegan. It's gonna take the base recipe and it's gonna make it vegan. So essentially, you don't have to start always from scratch, and but that's just. And again, I'm showing this because it's the first video. Okay, so it's vegan carbonara. What has it done? So it's cashews. It's unsweetened plant-based milk. It's doing my father. It's doing my father's version, just without me. But it's using like milk, garlic powder. It's gonna use milk, and I'm telling you, it's gonna use something else like liquid smoke. Okay, that's maybe a little too much. So my father was using milk and is using milk and flour, but it kind of makes sense, right? Because you want it vegan, so you don't want eggs. That's interesting. I'm not gonna publish these, but it's essentially basically you have that remix. So you have that functionality as well, where you can just take an existing recipe and then just build on top of it, right? I'm gonna discard these. I'm gonna show you something else before I finish these video. What's cool about these is that you don't have to just start by like prompting text. If you just want to archive, if you just want to keep like store a recipe that you're very bothered, like you don't want to like you like these ones, so BBC or whatever, but it's just so bothering. I mean, you have all these pop-ups and ads and whatnot. You can just go here, copy the link, and then just paste the website link. So you just do these, and that's actually going to parse the recipe. And again, we're not copying the recipe, right? So we're like getting inspired by the recipe. The model is taking a look at the recipe website, is getting inspired by the recipe, and then it's trying to basically make a version that is going to suit you, right? So it's gonna we're not even taking the image, so we're just basically giving you a baseline that you can work off of, right? And now you're here and say, cool. So I want to create an image. I don't like ultimate. I'm just gonna say now generate image, and that's it. And you could essentially just kind of start off that perspective and just basically build on top of recipes from the internet, recipes from YouTube videos which are launching soon as well. Or just go and just prompt it. You don't really know what you want to cook this week. Just come up with a meal plan and start building the recipes on your own here. So it's actually the easiest way to build recipes, in my opinion. It's a very interesting workflow, I would say. I'm gonna leave it here. I think I'm happy with the test that I've done. We've tested carbonara. We've tested making a vegan version out of these. We've tested the eggs and whatnot. I think it so far it's okay. But again, carbonara is relatively simple. What I'm gonna try to do next. What I'm going to try to do next time is I'm going to try to do something complex from a baking perspective. So we might even ask like an AI, like give us a very complicated recipe and then see what the model does here. Okay. I hope you like it. So if you want to follow, just stay tuned. We're going to be doing more live streams. So we have actual chat enabled, and we can you can ask questions. Um, but we're going to be testing this live basically. You can go and test it. You can just go and test it yourself, right? Of course. But I'm going to be testing these live on stream so that we can kind of fix things on the go, because I said it's too overwhelming to actually test everything And I thought I might as well just test it publicly so that we can we can get also your feedback in terms of how you like the system. So thanks a lot, and yeah, see you next time.